Please continue to help support Oneofus.net, help support all these people who get to go see movies and television shows and talk about them to you. And happy 2020, everybody!
It was not a happy 2020. It's the end of another year, and despite dangers untold and hardships unnumbered, including a dangerous virus, mutated cat people, there is a silver lining to all of this. One, I finally tried human flesh, so that crossed off the bucket list. Two, it gave us all so much more time to take in all the new media that came out this year, and there was a lot of it. I fought my way here to the castle beyond the Mutant Cat City to tell you about the best movies, TV shows, games, and more that the Cat King has stolen. Apparently they're opening a store or something. Hey, kitty. Yeah, I got a treat for you here. There you go. You want a treat? Do you want a treat, Cat King? Ah! Yeah! Okay.
I wanted to talk about Promising Young Woman, which is an excellent movie that is intensely about what women have to go through in this country sometimes.
Promising Young Woman, best ensemble cast in years, super serious issues, very dark, but also hilarious.
And it's also going to break you and hurt you and make you cry and think and have to sit on the couch and sit there and look off into space for a few minutes.
Invisible Man.
The Invisible Man.
Invisible Man, which came kind of out of nowhere at the beginning of the year and ended up being a harrowing, brutal, intense story made by an Australian filmmaker who's kicking ass right now. It would have been one of the best movies of the year, even if COVID hadn't happened.
Spree is maybe the most inventive horror movie I've seen this year. It totally captures this generation and how they think, internet culture, all while being also a good serial killer movie. This is one of the best written movies of the year, and everything about this was such a refreshing surprise.
I'm thinking of Ending Things.
I'm Thinking of Ending Things is the movie that has stuck with me most. I'm not sure if I was expecting that, but it makes me think uncomfortable thoughts in the best way. It's existential dread, and yet it's poetic and it's beautiful.
So Come to Daddy was a crazy movie that we managed to screen and then see once again in the Draft House. It features Elijah Wood as a young, kind of a yuppie who goes off to meet his dad, who he hasn't spoken to in years. And things get really weird and wacky. And halfway through that movie, it becomes something entirely different.
Laughter, or Le Rire in the original French. It's the story about basically dealing with grief and survivor's guilt after a civil war and a lot of murder happened in Quebec. It's not a real story, but it's taking a lot from, as you can imagine, stuff like World War II. And just, it's really moving and funny in ways you didn't expect.
Relic is one of the horror movies that I think we'll talk about for a long time. Not just because of style, but definitely because of substance. There's a lot of films recently that have used trauma, specifically family traumas, and this film takes something that's not only touching everyone in the world, but it uses the horror device where not only are we seeing something that is horrible that is happening, but the inevitability of it washing over the character's face in the last couple frames, I think is one of the best horror film endings of the last 10 years.
Hamilton.
Greatest music of all time. Probably. I've been watching it every Saturday since it debuted on Disney Plus. All my kids love it as well.
Hamilton might not have originally been published in 2020, but the film version of this makes it accessible for people all over the world. Seeing the people live and hearing this beautiful studio recording of this project is amazing, and it's brought it to life in a way that I'm probably not going to get to see in the real world.
Mank is another tale of torture in Hollywood. I thought this was a beautiful but seriously flawed piece from David Fincher, who is taking a lot from old Hollywood, including trying to make an epic within the sort of meta Hollywood framework.
French Exit. It stars Michelle Pfeiffer as a penniless widow who is really acerbic and really acidic in everything she says. And she moves to Paris with her directionless son, played by Lucas Hedges. They just go there to spend the rest of their days and see their wealth dwindle. And it's got poignancy, it's got poetry, but it's also got a really dark sense of humor and a touch of the surrealism. It's a really great film, really funny. But also kind of tragic. I really love Jimmy Carter, rock and roll president. Maybe it's because of the last 4 years really gotten to me. Maybe it's because he's my favorite president and his presidency is continuously being reevaluated. It's really an examination of how Jimmy Carter used music not only to get into the White House, but also to sort of get things done and bridge divides.
Spontaneous.
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 Spontaneous was my absolute favorite. Why? Because it involves people blowing up.
Your basic love story, but everybody's exploding in high school. I mean, no, seriously exploding.
I love dark teenage comedies, and this is honestly the best one in a good while. I even love it above Mean Girls. I said it, I'm not taking it back.
This movie just really touched my heart. It's everything I wanted in a movie and didn't know it.
And it honestly has a very sweet premise and great performances.
Man, I think the strongest thing I saw was The True Adventures of Wolf Boy. I think Frank referred to it as a lesson in empathy. It's literally about a kid who doesn't fit in and all of the things that go along with it, but not in a super cheesy way. The Sound of Metal was a fantastic flick. You've got a guy who's a metal drummer who's losing his hearing. Where are you supposed to go with that? And the film is his journey into becoming part of the deaf community and what that actually means.
12-Hour Shift was the one movie I saw this year that I really, really wish I could have seen in a full-packed theater. I described it as a gritty screwball comedy. Imagine a farce filtered through the lens of grindhouse cinema. It's the story of a lady doing a 12-hour shift. There's all kinds of illegal organ harvesting, crazy shit happening in this hospital on a very, very bad night. But I think it has the potential to be a cult classic.
Uncle Peckerhead. It does have a lot of really good effects. It has a lot of grotesque violence. It is very awesome to see punk music become a popular trend now. But the movie is really fun. The characters are really interesting for the most part.
One Night in Miami is directed by Regina King, who you know from The Watchmen. This movie is based on an off-Broadway play written around an actual event on the night that Cassius Clay won the heavyweight championship, where he and three friends all meet in a hotel room in Atlanta just to kind of, sort of party after the fight to celebrate with each other. So far, I've seen some good movies this year, but this one has blown me away.
Color Out of Space, the bonkers Nick Cage adaptation of the H.P. Lovecraft classic, for doing a really good job of modernizing the tale and bringing a high production quality, a good vision of what the undescribable that's so common to H.P. Lovecraft might actually be like.
All right, so New Mutants. I've been waiting for this movie for the longest time. I've been waiting for an X-Men movie that was actually a horror movie like they were talking about. And X-Men is my favorite superhero, franchise. And I thought the story was great. It was just the right experience at the right time.
Palm Springs.
Palm Springs.
I'm very surprised that my favorite movie of the year ended up being a Hulu Plus original. Palm Springs may not be the most original concept, but I really had a lot of fun with it. I love a good dark comedy. The cast is great. I love J.K. Simmons. Overall, it's just a really fun, entertaining movie.
Bill and Ted Face the Music.
Bill and Ted Face the Music.
Bill and Ted Face the Music, I think it was one of the best things that ever came out because it came out at a perfect time when I felt like we needed more hope. Really is what it comes down to. It's one of the most wholesome movies that came out this year. There's so much that's going on, and it feels like the ultimate end to a trilogy that I just think works better than I expected, and I think it's now become one of my favorite trilogies, even right next to Back to the Future trilogy.
One of the best things that came out this year was the sci-fi film Synchronic. It's everything that people wanted Tenet to be. It has just such a great original take on the time travel structure, while tackling themes like addiction and racism without feeling like that's all the movie is about. It's a great character piece.
The Gentleman?
The Gentleman.
So The Gentleman is another amazing crime movie with this huge cast that boils down this interesting storytelling method of in and out of different time periods, and then lines it all up again that it's super quotable.
Both Russ and I agreed on is my brother, who's not here, is Gretel Hansel. Oz Perkins, excellent. She's a surreal masterpiece and a feminist retelling of the Gretel and Hansel myth, but beautifully set in the very prescient end of the world, thick with incredible influences like Jodorowsky. It really deserved a bigger audience, and unfortunately it didn't find one this year.
I really loved Tenet. I thought it was a lot of fun. I think that Nolan has taken a huge hit for this in terms of his reputation because of the kind of like petulant way that he's handled COVID. If Christopher Nolan's sci-fi James Bond movie, if that phrase doesn't hit you at all, then you will probably not be into this. And it's just really fun. It's not anything really deep, but it would not have surprised me if at some point this was a James Bond script that Christopher Nolan couldn't get through.
The Haunted Swordsman is my favorite film this year, without asterisks, largely because I was completely captivated from the first frame and totally engrossed in the movie. The fact that it managed to do this in 16 minutes is also laudable. The fact that it was also a story told with expertly made puppets was just the cherry on top. This short film is going to scratch a lot of familiar itches for people while also managing to be entirely its own thing. I'm really recommending this, really looking forward to more from Kevin Turk. I saw After Midnight at the Telluride Horror Show. It's a real treat to find a movie that strikes the perfect balance between an exceptional horror film and a gut-wrenching relationship drama. After Midnight is one of those movies that doesn't so much defy genre as just perfectly blend two genres together. It's a horror movie that you can watch with your significant other, or you can commiserate with the lead character and be a sad, lonely bastard about it. The point is that you're going to feel genuine emotion for these characters, which is only going to ratchet up the viewer buy-in for when the horror moments drop.
Possessor Uncut.
Possessor, I think, is a great sophomore effort from Brandon Cronenberg, the son of David Cronenberg. Obviously, he's going more, again, into that kind of body horror genre. But this is a really interesting idea that mixes a lot of different stories that we've seen in the past, but have a new twist. And I'm really glad that he's able to write more full-fledged characters, at least with this film. This was a very thrilling ride of a movie.
Birds of Prey.
Birds of Prey.
Homewrecker.
Uncle Frank.
Dick Johnson is Dead.
Beastie Boy Story.
The Wolf of Snow Hollow.
The Five Bloods.
The Five Bloods.
The Wolf of Snow Hollow.
Inmate Number 1, The Rise of Danny Trejo.
Vast of Night.
Over the Moon.
Misbehavior.
Borat subsequent movie film.
Vivarium.
Vivarium.
Blackbird.
Lupin the Third.
And Enola Holmes.
And Borat 2.
You know, movies were far from the only thing worth your time in 2020. God knows we were all home enough to marathon through more television series than we normally would have. Well, you guys anyway, here's some of the best shows our crew saw this year.
The Mandalorian.
The Mandalorian.
The Mandalorian, obviously.
The Mandalorian is probably the first Star Wars project that has gotten me honestly excited since I don't know when.
Yeah, I had fallen out of the Star Wars fold. I did not think that I would be returning after Rise of Skywalker. I was done. And this has hit the marks so well.
It is ultimately about its relationships between the characters, about the character growth, and about doing new and interesting things with sides of the Star Wars universe that either have been underdeveloped or that haven't been touched on very much at all.
Favreau knows how to use this material. He knows how to give it to the audience in this loving way that isn't something that we're just going to be embarrassed by. Everything that I was worried about in this, like the Jedis and other things returning, every time they've come into the story, I've just been nothing but pleased.
Everything about it has been extremely well written, well executed. It's got an astounding cast, and let's be honest, that season finale was mwah.
Devs by Alex Garland. It's super weird, thought-provoking, and it's got Nick Offerman in a serious role, which is much like his comedy, so it's still hilariously amazing. And
I love to be sad, and the ending of The Good Place is one of the most cathartic cries I've ever had. And yeah, I still get choked up thinking about some of the moments from that episode or from those final few episodes in general. It is just one of the most brilliant, creative, and cathartic pieces of television that I have ever seen.
BoJack Horseman, Season 4, the very last one. The creative team here is amazing and has been for the past few years. The themes it was dealing with and the paths that it had these characters take were more human than anything I've seen in a long time.
The Queen's Gambit.
Queen's Gambit?
The Queen's Gambit.
Queen's Gambit.
Queen's Gambit. An incredibly beautiful show about chess.
It's just beautiful cinematography, absolutely wonderful acting. It's a feast for the eyes and the mind.
Marvelous performances. Absolutely engaging television.
Yeah, one of my favorite things to not only come out of this year, but in quite a while to come from Netflix.
Cobra Kai quickly turned into probably one of my favorite shows, in no small part because it is such an exploration of themes of what does it mean to be a man, what does it mean to grow, to change, to emotionally mature, or to be unable to let go of the past in the way that the past can kind of haunt us. It's got a deep emotional heart, and I am geeking out so hard for the next season.
Away is a new Netflix series that just came out this season and is a really great immersive experience in what it's like to be both on a small team made up of multiple cultures as well as First Horizons. This is their first trip out into deep space on a trip to Mars and goes through the challenges and community issues that happen when you're with a small team of five people for a long period of time.
I feel like one of the biggest undiscovered gems of the TV season this year was Good Lord Bird from the Hughes brothers. It's about John Brown, who's was a real-life abolitionist. He believed that people who own slaves deserve to die, and his mission in life was to cut through the South and just kill as many slave owners as he possibly could while freeing slaves. So good. Ethan Hawke is magnificent.
Doom Patrol.
Doom Patrol got even better and weirder in season 2, really digging into the Grant Morrison minutia of this weird ass comic and its premise, and even made the characters more three-dimensional. Absolutely love it.
Tales from the Loop. I seem to be the only guy who loved this show as much as I did, but this was a great hidden gem. It's smart, it's subtle, it's beautiful to look at, beautiful music, great acting. It's definitely not for everybody. It's very meditative, very slow, but if that's the type of sci-fi you like, this one really, really will speak to you. It's emotional in a way that most sci-fi shows are not.
Mystic Pop-Up Bar. A Korean comedy fantasy. You have these supernatural people that their whole goal is to make people overcome obstacles, but in a funny, sarcastic, loving way. And in this time of quarantine and pandemic, we really needed that.
Better Call Saul.
Better Call Saul Season 5. This is almost a victory lap. The filmmaking gets even more refined. The performances by the leads just gets incredible. Ray Seahorn was robbed of an Emmy. Bob Odenkirk is better than he's ever been. And it's on par, if not even better than Breaking Bad. And I'm really excited to see where season 6 goes. But even if it left with this, I would be satisfied.
Heaven's Gate, Cult of Cults. It's a 4-part documentary on Heaven's Gate. 39 members of a cult committed suicide because they believe their spirits would leave their earthly vessels and be carried away in a UFO that was following behind the Hale-Bopp comet. It actually takes that story, takes it seriously. It remembers that all of these people were human beings who left behind friends and family. It's 4 episodes, goes down smooth, and really, really riveting.
As for my favorite TV show of all things, going back to The Well, it's going to be Adventure Time. Adventure Time has released 2 mini things. It's going to be 2 of 4. The first one was okay. The next one is going to be Adventure Time Obsidian, which circles around Marceline and Bubblegum Princess, and just kind of explores a lot of the, I guess, bruises that Marceline had growing up. All of it done with the musical brilliance that attracts people to Adventure Time to begin with.
My best documentary of 2020 is the first episode of Marvel 616's Japanese Spider-Man. For a doofy Japanese superhero show made on an extremely tight budget in the 70s, I was shocked at how much the people making it truly loved what they were doing. And I even got really emotional at the end of it. Best pick-me-up for 2020 was not just a new Ultraman series, but a new Ultraman series in 2020, which is Ultraman Z, or Z. It was met with several challenges, and the result was a surprisingly fun and lighthearted and creative episodic show that was just kind of a nice throwback to old school Ultraman.
Sabrina season 3, and actually I think it's surpassed Riverdale this last season. Sabrina is just so weird. It went into a total different genre than what it used to be, and I was really very happy with the way it went, and I'm super excited for season 4.
Ted Lasso somehow flew under the radar. This little thing spawned out of 2 commercials of a fish out of water, Jason Sudeikis, being an American football coach, hired to coach a Premier League team in London. This show is addictive in all the best ways, and a feel good in a year of we don't know what we're supposed to feel.
So The Last Dance. This is a ESPN Films Michael Jordan documentary series that came out earlier this year. I think if you would have told me last year that a Michael Jordan sports documentary would make my top 5, I'd be really surprised. I'm honestly not a huge basketball fan. Jordan is just such a compelling, larger than life figure. There's some elements of it that made me think of Whiplash. Is the intense drive to succeed that you have, is it worth like hurting others around you? And if it just totally consumes your life in a way that's not always positive. So I thought it was really compelling.
High Fidelity.
Sadly, I'm picking the only season ever of the High Fidelity TV show, a fantastic adaptation of Nick Hornsby's book that transposes it to modern day with the luminous Zoe Kravitz, who I think should probably be the biggest star in the world, as the troubled lover of music and lover of people, probably not love herself enough character, Rob. I just can't say enough about this film. I am devastated that it did not get a second season, but the first season is on, and I promise you it will be the most entertaining, fun thing that you will watch.
I am also just super, super elated about Schitt's Creek finally getting the recognition that it was due this year at the Emmys with a complete sweep of every category that it was nominated in. That was just so happy to see, and I'm glad that the show itself came to a planned, dignified end with a really beautiful finale.
John Mulaney and the Sack Lunch Bunch. It's a Netflix comedy special that's not exactly him standing in front of a stage. It's actually like a Sesame Street-esque show, but it delves into some real deep issues that whether you're 10 years old or 40 or beyond, we all kind of have to deal with on a day-to-day basis, and things that keep us up at night, like death and what we're going to do with our lives and love. And while everyone got Endgame at the end of last year, this year we got the culmination of the Arrowverse with Crisis on Infinite Earths, crossover event with The Flash, Arrow, Legends of Tomorrow, Batwoman, and Black Lightning. This was the endgame of the DC television universe, and the DC television universe in general is the best DC we're getting right now.
I went with Lovecraft Country. I'm a big fan of sci-fi, and anything that takes something from author who's maybe problematic and racist and throws it out there and then subverts the subject matter and really hits the ground running with wackiness. I heard some people didn't really like the pacing that much, but I found it was great, and I thought it was a really rad show. For my other pick, I chose The Haunting of Bly Manor. I feel like it didn't get a lot of love. Everybody really wanted it to be something that it wasn't, or they wanted it to be like the previous season. They wanted more of the same. But I kind of appreciated they didn't do that.
Pin 15?
Penis.
Pin 15. I've been a big fan for the past couple of seasons now, and the newest season is even better than before. The two lead actresses are so genuinely funny with the material that they're given and what they're presenting with like realistic situations of being a middle schooler is so great and timeless.
The Flight Attendant,
Lovecraft Country,
Riverdale Season 4,
Vice Guide to Bigfoot,
The Boys,
Season 2 of Kidding on Showtime,
Harley Quinn,
Harley Quinn Season 2,
The Good Fight,
DuckTales Season 3,
Fargo Season 4,
Raised by Wolves,
Alex Rider,
Space Force,
What We Do in the Shadows Season 2,
She-Ra and the Princesses of Power,
The Boys in the Band,
The Comedy Store,
and The Order Season 3 on Netflix.
And yet there was even more to brighten the deadlights of this year. Listen to some of our crew, enlighten you as to what else you might have missed out on.
I am listening to lots of podcasts, and the one that's really coming to my radar and really stayed there is You're Wrong About. Basically, the premise is it's two millennials. They're both writers. They're both members of the press. They are looking back at stuff that has happened through their lives that they may have, the take that most people have, and they kind of throw a spotlight on it and go like, hey, were we, what's the real story on this? They debunk a lot of conspiracy theories, and they debunk a lot of moral panic. You can tune in, and it's a little less grating, but just as educational.
Half-Life Alyx. Yes, VR is an expensive and difficult medium, but this is the first game that I've ever played that has made VR really seem like the future. And as someone who has a lot of affinity for the Half-Life universe, getting a new entry that actually does further the plot and changes a lot of things is so exciting and feels amazing.
One of the best books I read this year is the first of the Great Cities trilogy by N.K. Jemisin called The City We Became. And the short form of this is what would happen if the soul of New York City had to get into a fist fight with Cthulhu. I'm really not exaggerating. That's literally what's going on. The idea of this series is that each city has a soul. Those souls manifest as people who become the embodiment of what that part of the city represents, and they're dealing with a literal extra-dimensional threat. So if that is the sort of thing that you really enjoy, or just a really interesting take on the urban fantasy genre, I highly recommend you check this one out.
Assassin's Creed Valhalla is one of the best, most immersive games I've played in a really long time. I am always looking for games that are involved in history and lore and culture. This game has that. It's got an archery-heavy plot, which makes me personally very happy. The music in this game was really great. The ability to dive into history and learn things about it I've never seen before was just phenomenal. And the way that the game goes back and forth between female and male character elements is just phenomenal.
So two things I discovered in 2020 that really helped me escape the everyday. One was Baumgartner Restorations. They do art restoration from paintings that are completely ruined, and you follow them all the way through to the end where the paintings are totally restored and beautiful. And also Tasting History with Max Miller. He's just a guy, he lives in SoCal, and he does a whole bunch of research into recipes that existed, ancient recipes that are like scrawled in Latin. He translates and provides historical context.
Hades.
I usually don't like roguelike games, but Hades really got to me because of how story integrated it is. This was developed by Supergiant Games. It's got great art design, great voice acting, great music. It's difficult, but not in a punishing way. It's more trying to teach you how to play the game so you can get better at playing it. It's a lot of fun, and it's just nice to see really well done Greek mythology in video games.
And a comic that I've been recommending to anyone who listens to me is a book called Stealth from Image Comics. It is about a superhero from Detroit who was big back in the day and then gets his super suit again and goes out there. The only thing is, he's been around for a long time and he's a bit senile. He's totally maiming guys who are just robbing a liquor store. There's so much about it that I don't want to say. I guarantee once you read the first issue, you will not be able to put it down until you see it to the end.
The Last of Us 2, which was somewhat controversial but undeniably groundbreaking sequel in the video game sector. It was very gritty, almost Eli Roth tier at times, and I think it told a interesting story in an interesting way, and it changed the field, and it did it with some fun and innovative gameplay as well as breaking new accessibility ground.
I've been a huge Trent Reznor fan for a long time. I'd say he had a very good year with the soundtracks to Mank and Soul and his Emmy win for Watchmen. But at the beginning of COVID, he released another set of instrumentals called Ghosts 5 and 6, and it's very relaxing. It's stuff I listen to while I'm writing, or if I'm just kind of sitting around. It's very hard to really get into music at a time like this, but Trent Reznor really nailed it, as he always does.
So Batman Joker War is one of the best things that came out this year because it is the ultimate final kind of showdown between Batman and Joker. Like, Batman is now broke because Joker has taken all of his money, and now it's up to basically him and Harley Quinn to save all of Gotham City from a Joker who has so much money that even the law is not going to try to stop him. It culminates in this final battle between Joker and Batman that's just so much fun, as well as just it adds so much more to that mythos, and it puts Batman back to kind of square one, and I really, really enjoyed that about it.
I miss the theater. I miss all that stuff. And one of the theater companies that I absolutely love is Team Star Kid. And last February, they produced Black Friday, which is a horror comedy where Cthulhu comes to Earth in the form of a Tickle Me Elmo doll. And it is delightful.
This is from my brother's list. He could not be here, so I'm representing him. He picked Sam Watson's amazing book about the making of Chinatown. And it's beautifully written, one of the best behind the scenes inside, Hollywood books I've ever read. Highly recommend. And, despite its problematic legacy, especially due to its creators, a very entertaining and a beautifully written read about a once-in-a-lifetime film.
Final Fantasy VII Remake,
Ghost of Tsushima,
Watch Dogs Legion,
Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2,
Maneater,
Animal Crossing New Horizons,
Murder Hornets,
Wonder Woman Dead Earth,
Spider-Man Miles Morales,
Strange Tales,
What Happens at Night, Virtual Film Fest,
Nightmare Time,
Phoebe Bridgers' new album Punisher,
Melanie C's self-titled album,
Wearing a Mask and Not Being an Asshole.
And that's the story. Should be plenty of stuff there to tide you over for the rest of this never-ending winter that has finally come. Me, I had a few picks of my own, aside from the stuff that our One of Us contributors just told you about. You know what? I'll get to it. Gotta make it to that Mutant Cat King castle. Even though they told me my cat steed would freeze before I reached the first marker. I guess I'll podcast from hell. I'll see you there. This is fine. Well, bye. Let's hope for a better 2021. Hey, is there any chance a guy could get some ice water down here? Okay, Jesus Christ, I was kidding! I don't see you torturing Sean Connery over there.
Riley.
This is Daria Argento. Say hi, Daria.
Dean. Dean.
Presenting Monkey the King. Fuck off, Jack.
Hello, my name is Sebastian, and I'm a little asshole.
Little man.
Jason. Hey. Hey. Pay attention to me. That's oh, there you are. Jason. Ah!
Hey, buddy. Come here. Pascal. Sonia.